What's going on, everyone? I would like to welcome you all to another edition of Wayne's Perspective, where we operate in discipline, decency, integrity, and respect. On this Wednesday evening, 7:42 p.m. in Richmond, Virginia, I hope everyone is doing okay as we head into another weekend. And look, the time is continuing to go by fast. Next thing you know, we're going to be in mid-April already. The month just got here, but as we all know, time is moving by real fast. So again, I hope everyone is doing okay, taking every day one day at a time. As for me, I'm doing fine over here. Can't complain too much. So without further delay, I'm going to get right into today's video. So I'm going to share two articles with you all today. One is from the Washington Post, and the other one is from NBC News. The first one is going to be about student loans, and apparently student loans is back in the news again. I just want to preface this by saying that me personally, I don't have anything against student loans. As we all know, higher education in all forms in this country has been expensive for decades now. So naturally, when it comes to those who aim to achieve such standards and aim to get a degree, whether it's a bachelor's or master's or doctorates or anything like that, naturally everyone is not going to be able to afford it. So, I can see why student loans were born. And I do understand, when you take out such loans, you're obligated to pay them back. That's what a loan is for. But at the same time, when we come to things like higher education and wanting to better ourselves academically as well as professionally and personally, why not have something in place to, assist? Even if the system has been taken advantage of, we can always discuss that on, anytime. But like I said, I understand why student loans exist and I understand why they're popular per se, so I get it. And of course, there might be those who disagree, and that's fine. But I do understand what the purpose of student loans is for, and I've taken out some. I have no problem admitting that. But I understand what the Biden administration is trying to do by getting these things canceled. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can go ahead and get into the first article. All right, just give me 1 second here. All right, so here we go. Biden makes another pitch for student loan relief, but challenges loom. So let's go ahead and get into it. So like I said, um, I understand what student loans are for. I'm not against them in any form. Even those who take multiple student loans. I understand. On one side, people are like, they should be paid back, and I understand that. But on the flip side, I understand. Like I said, I understand their purpose and why they were born and why they continue to exist. And as long as tuition rates are high for all universities in this country, they're going to remain high unless at a certain point they come down, which is highly unlikely at this point. So, like I said, I understand both sides of this particular argument. So, with that being said, let's get started with the Washington Post article.
This news story was written by Danielle Douglas Gabriel. Biden makes another pitch for student loan relief, but challenges loom. President Biden on Monday laid out plans to forgive some or all student loans for more than 30 million Americans, trying to expand on his administration's work to reduce debt burdens, but offering a narrower path for forgiveness than a plan struck down by the Supreme Court last year.
Okay, and let me stop it right there for a little bit. So, I'm pretty sure most of you listening to this know that the Supreme Court did strike this down last year. They tried a more, what I would consider a more narrow approach to canceling student debt, but again, they were taken to court, and then the Supreme Court struck it down. And I would say it was struck down basically because they either said that the Biden administration um, overstepped their authority, or they just didn't have the power to enforce such a thing. But I mean, let's give the Biden administration credit here. This is something that Biden has been trying to do since he's been in office. So you got to give him credit, even though things have came slower than most people would like and most people would anticipate. you have to, you have to give credit what credit is due, in that they're trying to do something, as opposed to it being swept under the rug and just them not doing anything. Whereas if this was under the Trump administration, you know, nothing would be done. But that's neither here nor there. Let's
One
continue.
far-reaching component would forgive up to $20,000 in interest for federal student loan borrowers whose balances have ballooned because of unpaid interest. A move that the White House estimates could benefit 25 million people, and that could take effect as soon as this fall. Other aspects of the debt plan, which probably will not be finalized for months, would take effect next summer. Today,
And again, with that, all of this stuff does take time. So I understand that. And again, seeing it from a soon to be student's point of view, who's going to be returning to school in the fall of 2024, I understand, people want to see results and they want to see them fast. So in a case like this, yes, there's going to be policies, procedures, as well as legal challenges, but we're going to get into that later in this article. But I just wanted to make those points. Let's continue.
too many Americans, especially young people, are saddled with unsustainable debts in exchange for a college degree, Biden said at an event at a college in Madison, Wisconsin. The ability for working and middle-class folks to repay their student loans has become so burdensome that a lot can't repay it for even decades after being in school. Biden's announcement sought to reaffirm his goal of easing the burden of college debt, an issue that could help energize his base ahead of a tough matchup this fall with former President Donald Trump.
Okay, let me stop it right there. So I have heard that the reason why Biden is doing this is to court the young voters. Okay, now part of that may be true, but let's face it. I mean, this is something that resonates with the younger voters. So I get that, but in no way do I see this as, you know, caping for the young voters, for the lack of a better word, or trying to pander to young voters. This is something that interests young voters for a variety of reasons. So one part of it I do get is that, yeah, this is, reaching out to the young voters, but I understand why. But I wouldn't say that this is just being done just for political purposes. I mean, I understand why there's a big push for it. And again, credit to Joe Biden, because this is something that he's been wanting to do since he was inaugurated. So I give him props on that.
Since taking office, the administration has approved $146 billion in loan forgiveness for 4 million public servants, defrauded students, disabled borrowers, and other groups already entitled to cancellation by adjusting existing relief programs. But Biden has faced regular attacks on his debt cancellation policies from conservatives, including a lawsuit filed last week by nearly a dozen state attorneys generals to scuttle the president's new student loan repayment plan. Critics have challenged Biden's authority to wipe away debt and denounced his loan cancellation efforts as fiscally irresponsible and unnecessary.
Okay, now let me stop it right there. Okay, now, in my view, there's nothing irresponsible about this and there's nothing unnecessary about it. Okay, because if Trump decided to do this, they wouldn't say anything. They'll be all for it. Even if there may be pushback from some, most of them would be all for it. And dare I say the Democrats would probably be in favor of it too. But I would say that the president does have this authority, even if he's not doing it by executive order. I mean, I think he's well within his reach to do this, and of course, leave it to the conservatives to file lawsuits, because, I mean, at this point in the game, what else do the Republicans do except gaslight, lie, deflect, and sue people? What else do they do? So it's no surprise that, basically with some on this level, there is going to be legal challenges. So it's no surprise there. Let's continue.
While framed as providing a safety net, the new plan ignores that we already have multiple safety nets for such borrowers, including forbearance, deferment, and a host of income-driven repayment plans that ensure that payments are always affordable, said Andrew Gillen, a research fellow at the Cato Institute. The real purpose is to transfer as much debt as possible from the students who took out the loans to the taxpayers who didn't.
Okay, now let me stop right there. Okay, granted, there may be safety nets in place, but there could be some additional safety nets too. It shouldn't be just on the count of forbearance, deferment, and other income-driven repayment plans, according to this Andrew guy, And also, I would say that Unless I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but I don't see this as being a burden on the taxpayers. Now, this is something where I would definitely like to see what the average constituent has to say about this, whether they have a degree or not. I would love to see what they have to say and see what they stand on the issue because, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see this as a burden on the taxpayers.
The Biden administration has said the proposed plan is designed to reach people who are shut out of existing programs and those who have been trapped in unaffordable debt because of the Byzantine student loan system.
That's important.
President Biden will use every tool available to cancel student loan debt for as many borrowers as possible, no matter how many times Republican elected officials try to stand in his way. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters Sunday, the president's speech Monday in Madison was not technically a campaign event, but the trip had a clear political purpose. Biden has few paths to re-election without winning Wisconsin, a state in which he defeated Trump in 2020 by fewer than 21,000 votes. And as polls and interviews show that Biden continues to struggle with young voters, he sought to appeal to the crucial voters at a community college there. He was introduced by a small business owner and graduate of the University of Wisconsin at Madison, who has benefited from Biden's student debt cancellation efforts. The new relief plan is Biden's most significant attempt at large-scale student loan forgiveness since the Supreme Court last summer blocked his 2022 plan to cancel more than $400 billion in student loans. That plan would have delivered up to $20,000 in loan cancellation for 40 million borrowers.
And see, that's another thing that I want to touch on here. And again, I understand where the young voters are coming from. This is probably on their top three list of things that they're really concerned about. So I understand why Joe Biden would want to address this, or any president would want to address this for that matter. I mean, it's important. Dare I say it's vital. So student loans are a thing, if you will. So I can only imagine any responsible president would want to take this head on and continue to do as much as they can to see that some of this debt, if not all of it, can be wiped away. I get that. And going back to the Supreme Court thing, I was not surprised when it went to the Supreme Court, and I wasn't surprised when they blocked it. But I don't see anything wrong with what the administration was attempting to do. And let's face it, even if Joe Biden would have went the opposite way and did it by executive order, that still would have been met by legal challenges. I mean, the way that I see it. So I have no issues.
After the ruling, Biden quickly pledged to offer an alternative path for forgiveness. The administration has spent months working through a negotiated rulemaking process at the Education Department and said the draft rule will be released for public comment in the coming months.
Okay, now let me stop right here again. Okay, now you notice it said quickly pledge to offer an alternative path for forgiveness. You see, now that's what I consider still taking action, because usually in the case with the Supreme Court, their word is the last word, but you still want to keep this going, and in a case like student loan debt and trying to wipe it away, you don't want the situation to be, well, okay, the Supreme Court said this, so we got to abide by it. No, in this case, I mean, pledging an alternative path, I agree with that. Any other responsible president would do such a thing. So I have no issue with that.
Now there's an end to the nightmare of working hard, making loan payments, and still watching your loan balances get bigger and bigger month after month, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona told reporters Sunday. This work is nothing short of transformative. That's why we're unapologetic about this fight. The plan focuses on select groups of borrowers, those who owe far more than they originally borrowed because of interest, those who have been paying for at least 20 or 25 years, those who attended career training programs that led to high debt loads or low earnings, those who are eligible for existing forgiveness programs but never applied, and those experiencing hardship. A key feature is the planned elimination of up to $20,000 in accrued interest for borrowers, regardless of their income. Single borrowers earning less than $120,000 or married couples earning less than $240,000 could qualify to have all of their accrued interest forgiven if they are enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan. The Biden administration said the goal is for the vast majority of the relief to be automatic, so no application would be required. Other features that would take effect next year include automatically eliminating the debt of borrowers in repayment for more than 20 years and people who qualify for relief but haven't applied. Representative Ayanna Pressley, Democrat, Massachusetts, who helped champion the case for widespread debt relief, called the new plan a powerful testament to the borrowers across the nation who fought for economic justice and continued to make the case for student debt despite obstruction from the Supreme Court and Republicans. The new plan takes a more targeted approach to loan forgiveness and relies on the authority of the Higher Education Act, a different law than the one the administration cited in its failed 2022 plan, which experts say could give it firmer legal ground. But much like the last plan, Biden's latest bid for sweeping debt relief could face legal challenges from conservative groups.
Yeah, and in that case, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it faced legal challenges because, again, one thing that the Republicans know how to do is take people to court.
Senator Bill Cassidy, Louisiana, the ranking Republican on the Senate Health, Education, Labor and Pensions Committee, on Monday, panned the Biden administration's plan.
See what I mean?
These loan schemes do not forgive debt. They transfer the debt from those who willingly took it on to the 87% of Americans who decided to not go to college or already work to pay off their loans, Cassidy said in a statement. This is an unfair ploy to buy votes before an election and does absolutely nothing to address the high cost of education that puts young people right back into debt.
Okay, sir. This is not an unfair ploy to buy votes because let's face it, if Donald Trump was out there right now trying to do something similar, you'll be all for it. So don't give me that nonsense, sir. Moving
The debt
on.
plan, when finalized by the Biden administration, will take full effect regardless of who is in office next year. A Trump administration could refuse to enforce the regulation or rescind it.
And check that out. Voters, did you hear that? A Trump administration could refuse to enforce the regulation or rescind it. And what are the odds that they're going to let this go? No, they wouldn't enforce it. You know, they would rescind it. And Trump will probably rescind it on day one, which wouldn't be surprised. So voters, pay attention to that.
Tyler Pager contributed to this report.
All right, so that was that particular article, and credit to Miss Danielle Douglas Gabriel on the article. Like I said, I'm in full support of student loans. I get what the purpose is for. I get why they were born. I get why they're still active. I get why students would want to take them on, especially when you can't afford to pay for higher education yourself. I get it. I understand the other argument. You know, if you take them out, you should pay them back. I understand that. And at the same time, I'm not against programs that'll help people pay them off or wipe the debt with a clean slate, sweep, if you will. I'm all for that. I'm not against student loans, you know, whether I took one out myself or not. So I get what their purpose is for, and I get why students currently and in the future will want to take them. So I have no issues here. And again, credit to the Biden administration for continuing to work hard on this particular issue. So continuing on with the next article. All right. This is courtesy of NBC News. Credit to Brendan Smilowski. I believe I pronounced that right. Biden is building a behemoth of a campaign. Trump at this point seems to be playing catching up. All right. So we're going to get into this one just one moment. I thought I had a way that I was going to be able to have this one read because I honestly don't want to read this entire article, to be honest with you. Let's see. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's see. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get this started. I'll go ahead and read this. I'm not going to read the entire article. I'm just going to read the notable points here. Okay. So Biden is flush with cash and opening campaign offices across the country, but he has struggled to overcome Trump and his more meager campaign in the polls. Okay. Credit to Peter Nichols, Alan Smith, Vaughn Hilliard, Adam Edelman, and Ben Camisar. President Joe Biden has been scooping up record-making donations and plowing the money into an expanding campaign operation in battleground states that appears to surpass what Donald Trump has built thus far. And that's true. Flushed with $71 million in cash at the end of February, more than twice that of Trump's campaign, Biden parlayed his fundraising advantage into a hiring spree that now boasts 300 paid staffers across 9 states and 100 offices in parts of the country that would decide the 2024 election, according to details provided by the campaign. Trump's advisors would not disclose staffing levels, but his ground game still seems to be at a nascent stage. His campaign hired state directors in Pennsylvania and Michigan last week, people familiar with the recruitment process said. Combined, the Trump campaign and Republican National Committee have fewer than 5 staff members in each of the battleground states, said 2 Republicans familiar with the committee and the Trump campaign's organizational structures in 2020 and 2024. At this point in 2020, when Trump was running as the incumbent, the Trump Victory Organization already had state directors, regional directors, and field organizers on the ground in battleground states, testing field operations and activating volunteers, the 2 people said. This is like comparing a Maserati to a Honda. 2020 had staff and the bodies in place to turn out the vote, one said. This current iteration is starting from ground zero, and we're 7 months out from the election. It makes no sense and puts them at a huge disadvantage to Biden, who is staffing up in droves. Okay. The start of the general election campaign illustrates how Trump and Biden are waging different bets on the path to victory in November. Beset by low approval ratings, Biden's view is that a muscular campaign operation will impress upon voters that he's championed popular policies and will propel them to completion if reelected, his advisor said. The question is whether brick and mortar offices and phone banks will be enough to overcome nagging doubts about his age and fitness. Okay, now let me stop there. Now, regarding polls, I think I've conditioned myself at this point to not pay attention to polls because, as many people have said, polls are just a moment in time or a capture of a moment in time. So I really don't read anything into those, and neither should you. You know, polls, I get what their purpose are, but I'm not going to base my support or what I see based on polls alone. I'm just not going to do it. Now, am I concerned about Biden's age? I mean, slightly, but, he said, watch what he do. And I've been watching him since he's been in office, and there's nothing to suggest to me that he's not capable of the job. Now, sure, he's the oldest president in history, and even when he's inaugurated, he's going to be an older man when he leaves office in 2028, assuming that he wins, he's going to be a much older man. But there's nothing that I've seen that makes me think twice, like, okay, he's not up to it, Now, I'm a good judge of character myself, so if I see that, then I would basically say it, but I'm not saying that. He still gives me the impression that he's capable of doing this job, and he's more in tune with this country than Donald Trump is. And it's clear to me the only reason why Donald Trump is running for president is to stay out of jail and to get back at his political opponents, whereas Biden's view is all centered around the American people and still doing this for the soul of the nation. That's what I'm getting. Now, as far as brick and mortar offices and phone banks, yes, there's going to be enough, and basically having a muscular campaign operation is going to be enough, because if you're not doing that, then people are going to question whether your heart is in it. People are going to have a lot of questions about it. They're going to say you're campaigning, you're not campaigning well, you're lacking this, you're lacking that. That's going to be a talking point. So yes, all of this should make a difference, I would think. So continuing on, Trump faces a different predicament. His political strength has always been rooted in an emotional bond with his lower base than any political apparatus. He's running strong in the polls, but is awash in dramas, distractions, and several ongoing trials. A chunk of pro-Trump fundraising goes towards legal fees. Think about that for a minute. A chunk of pro-Trump fundraising goes toward legal fees. So, question, has any of you out there bought those gold shoes? Are any of you donating to his campaign? Let me know. Let me know. Since taking over the Republican National Committee last month, his team jettisoned dozens of staff members with the proviso that they could reapply for their jobs, whatever. Both camps said they're confident about their prospects, even as their allies on the ground are more guarded. Waiting for the start of a ceremony marking the opening of Biden's Pennsylvania state campaign headquarters in Philadelphia on March 30th, Joanne Waters, 62, said, "I'm a little bit nervous." She said she planned to help canvass neighborhoods on Biden's behalf, make calls to voters, and do whatever they need me to do. "I'm anxious to know what the strategy is so we can get folks out to vote, and I'm particularly concerned about the youth vote," she said. Understandable. San DeMarco, the Republican chairman in Pennsylvania's Allegheny County, said in an interview that he did not expect to see full staffing from the Trump RNC campaign until the summer. "The team that gets more of their voters to the polls is the team that's going to win," DeMarco said. "The Democrats have a significantly better get out the vote infrastructure." That's true. Trump's fundraising has been picking up, potentially helping him mount a more competitive ground game if he chooses. His campaign and the RNC said last week they raised more than $65.6 million in March and ended the month with more than $93.1 million on hand. I would love to see some documentation about that, but okay. Trump hoped to get another fundraising jolt last weekend, courtesy of a fundraiser in Palm Beach, Florida. His top advisor said the event at the home of billionaire hedge fund investor John Paulson goes $50 million for Trump's campaign, the RNC, and other pro-Trump entities. That sum is nearly twice as much as Biden reeled in last month in a celebrity-rich fundraiser in New York City featuring the president and his two most recent Democratic predecessors, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. All right, so I'm gonna stop it right there. I'm not gonna go through the rest of this article, but I will put this link and the Washington Post link on the student loan program in the description box, and you can take an additional look at it. So my only thoughts of this is that Biden is going to continue building this campaign. Trump is pretty much going to be Trump. He's going to do whatever he can to stay the hell out of jail. And, so that's all I have to say about it. So on that note, I hope you all enjoyed this particular video. I hope you all have also checked out the third part of Trump Effect. Trump is not a people person. So if you haven't checked that out, as well as the first two parts, go ahead and check those out as well. Other than that, I hope everyone continues to do well. Like I said, as we head into another weekend, I'll be back with another video soon. I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to do regarding the KRS-One post. I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to do with the Monday Night War post. But in the meantime, I'm still going to put out as much content as I can while balancing my busy schedule. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and remember, the power of the mind is